Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. Welcome to Talking Booth here on British Muslim TV. I'm Lauren Booth, and in this series I meet members of the Muslim community who are having an impact on wider society. Now, if you'd like to find out more about this series or any of our featured guests, why not get in touch with us via www.britishmuslim.tv/talkingbooth, or you can follow us on social media at #talkingbooth. Now, my guest today is a self-made businessman. He studied graphic design at Leeds University before founding his first business at 18 years old. Today, he is the founder of the hugely successful charity Penny Appeal, which now operates in 30 countries as of this year. He is also famously the founder of SingleMuslim.com. Adeem Younis, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
That is quite a CV already. Founding a business at 18 years old. How did that come about?
Alhamdulillah, I mean, it's just passion to be able to do what you know, it's having that confidence, I guess, to be able to do it yourself. I was very, very fortunate at an early age. My college tutor, Ron Jones, was really passionate and kind of instilled a lot of values in us. And he got me a work experience at Yorkshire TV. I went in and it was a small work environment. So we were working with account handlers, graphic designers, so the sales team and everything. And it was, there's 5-6 people. I worked there for 2 weeks, thoroughly enjoyed myself, and they took me on for another 6 months, 1 day a week. The day I had off at college, I was there, and I thought to myself, I can do this. This is quite easy, calling the clients, chasing calls up, booking appointments, doing the sales, and doing the whole package in terms of doing the product launches and everything. So why not, rather than getting paid minimum wage, which was unheard of at the time anyway. It was almost like getting a sandwich for the day's work. I thought, I really enjoy talking to people. And I guess the passion really is making things happen, getting things off the ground and being able to build something, and doing that and getting paid for it is well, wow.
I still think that takes a huge amount of confidence. It's one thing to work 1 day a week in an office and watch people doing it, and another thing to fill in all the forms and go through that process, have an idea. Where did that confidence come from?
It's knowing what the teamwork and being able to bounce off the right people and having the right people in the environment. As there's a famous saying in the office, teamwork makes the dream work, and it's just as simple as that, really. Getting the right people involved, being able to trust people in the team, being able to delegate tasks, and being accountable, not just as an individual but as a team, making sure that when you say that you're going to deliver, that you deliver before even the promised deadline.
So let's go back in time a bit, because your family came over from a humble region of Pakistan. What year did they arrive in Britain?
My grandfather's been here for 56 years now, and he was a World War II veteran. He was in the British Army as well. So he tells us a lot about his British Army days and how he went all around the world. He was in Nepal, he was stationed in Malaysia, he was stationed, and he just tells us really about, the bravery and the camaraderie that was around at the time. And he came over to work in the mills, and then brought his children over, my mum, and then my mum brought her husband over. And it's just, they're from a very, very small rural village in Pakistan, and not a lot happens there. It's very quiet, very, very small, and it's really unlike any place in the UK.
I'm just curious, did your grandfather feel respected for the role that he played in World War II?
Massively, yeah. He still talks about it with great pride. He fought alongside British soldiers, and he fought for king and queen and country in the way. He's proud of the fact that he was involved in the army, and he's proud of the fact that he brought his family over and gave them a better life and gave them a better kind of future and gave them the stability in the UK. And I remember as a child, went over to Pakistan and there's no toilets. So literally, if you need a toilet, you run to the field and do your little business and then come straight back again. And there's no running water, so you have to go 2 miles with a donkey and a barrel, go to the wells, fill the barrels up with water, bring them back on donkey back, and put them into the big drums in the house, and then use the water all day long. And you literally come back to the UK and you think to yourself, wow, a toilet. Wow, look at this magic trick. It works, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. And it's like, Grandad, thank you very much for bringing us to the UK. And it was just, he was like, oh, this is what Adeem said to me. He says, thank you for bringing us here. And it's just, it's not a different country, it's not a different world, it's a different universe.
Well, what is the reason that your grandfather actually moved over? It was economics, it was toilets and taps?
It was purely economics. He was going to come over for 6 months, he was going to come over for a year, make a little bit of money and go back. Yeah. And I think all his generation, that was a plan. They're going to come over, make a little bit of money, build a nicer house, build a well in the village, have some, medical care for the family, for his wife, for his children, so they can get him into schools and education. Just the normal things that everybody takes for granted nowadays. He didn't have any shoes or slippers. He talked about the time that he had no shoes. This is luxury. So obviously they come here, and then the children come over into academia, studies, and so on and so forth, and then you settle.
In those days, the 50s, Asian families weren't necessarily always given the best reception by the people here. There was an expectation of come over, fill these jobs, and then go. So, a lot of the communities here thought, okay, when are you going? And then the people coming thought, when am I going? How did that change? What happened in your family?
I remember a story that he says that the English never used to like the smell of garlic. So when he was waiting in the queue for the factory, they should say, "Oh, it stinks of garlic," and he says, "Look at them now. They all love the smell of garlic." We've got a neighbour who comes around and says, "What are you cooking tonight? It smells delicious." We always kind of share it out with the neighbours and everything, and it's just like, I remember, Grandad says, I remember the day that it used to get picked on because of the smell and get picked on because of this and that and the other. But there was a need at that time to have people come over, have young men come over and fill the places and run the country.
Adeem, there was a need to spice up our food. My grandmother, I love her, but her food was terrible. She's the idea of garlic, disgusting. So thank you, if your grandfather brought garlic over. So there was a decision at some point when your parents were growing up that they were going to stay and make it work here. So your parents your mum was young. She went to school in Leeds or Wakefield?
No, she came over in her teenage years. So she was one of the first women in the village to go to school back in Pakistan. So they were quite far ahead of their time back in those days. I remember saying that my grandfather used to get picked on in his peer group because, why he's sending the girls to school and so on and so forth. So when she got married, she came here, and it was just a case of being a housewife. My father used to go out and work in the factories. And it's just then, like any family, you have your house, you pay your mortgage, and your children are at school. And I don't think this is a decision that we're going to stay or we're going to go. It's just this just where you are. This is home. And I guess that's a decision that was almost the environment made the decision that this is home. But now, as a third generation, this is definitely our home. This is definitely my home.
Do you get a feeling growing up that your mum wanted to go back home, or because let's be honest, we're up north, I'm from the south, so I can say this, it's rainy, it can be a bit grey up here for all the lovely things about the people. Well, what was it that they loved, and what was it that they found difficult?
My father passed away when I was 8 years old. So personally, my own situation was my mum worked all hours of the day. She was a seamstress, and she, whatever in the evenings when she wasn't looking after the house, when she wasn't, giving us homework lessons and making sure that we were kind of, doing all the maths work and the English work and everything. She was working for other people and just making dresses and so on and so forth. So we had a lot of people coming into the house, and it was a case of, she'd save up and pocket full of money, to go on a school trip, and it was, it was a day to day, week to week kind of scenario. So that thought, I don't think ever maybe deep down, but we never felt it, that there was a case of, you know, we need to go back to Pakistan, or we need to go back to my grandfather's country, or so on and so forth. We just getting by on a day-to-day basis was quite difficult for the family.
Now, you went to school in Leeds in the late 70s, early 80s. What was the environment like there, being an Asian boy in the school you went to?
Again, you know, the passion from my mum to make us the best at what we can do, and it was she, bless her, she saw a school 5 miles away, and it had really good reports, and it had a good reputation, so she said, I'm going to send you to this school. So it was a case of catching the bus half an hour down the road and going into the school, and it was a school away from the Asian community, and I was one of the 3 Asians, Muslims in the school, and the school had over 1,000 pupils. So at the time, I didn't think of myself as being any different. You know, you're a child, you're kind of innocent, you see the world, and that's your world, that's your environment. And the school was tolerant. There was no differences. There was no real kind of hate or any problems at that school. You
know, back in those days, there wouldn't have been a masjid nearby, or a prayer room at school, or certainly, you know, halal meat. Was any of that the specific difficulty for your family, or did you just get by and not really consider it? Or?
We got free school meals at the time because of the income that mum was on, or the lack of income. So it was just a case of vegetarian dishes. That's what you eat.
Do you think poverty makes people more pragmatic? It had a pragmatic effect on you. I'm just wondering if, you know, young Muslims today with high expectations of we want to be in our comfort zone a lot more often. Does it help a little taste of poverty?
I'm not sure about that, but we just, you know, again, mum kept us grounded. She kept us focused. Go to school, make sure you're back. Make sure you're back at 4 o'clock. Why are you late? You know, you've come back from school. Do your homework. You've done your homework, go to masjid, you know, make sure you pray salah, come back home, right, get to bed, and, you know, so on and so forth. So it's quite a strict-ish upbringing in the time that you've got to just, you know, go. But in the sense that coming from a poorer background, I guess you just do what you have to do, and you just accept what you have to, and you have the drive to do the simple things, like you know, I want to go on that school trip, and it's going to cost, you know, 50 pence or £2.50 or whatever. So it's a case of, you know, can we afford that, or no, can we afford this? You know, just a small little things, and they highlight, I guess.
Do you know, when I was growing up, we used to wash our hair in fairy liquid because my mum said, oh, it's the same stuff, and our toilet paper was the Guardian. And my dad used to say, we're not poor because we were using the Guardian, not the Sun as toilet paper. So that was our aspiration. Okay, so Adeem, we've got you at school, one of only 3 Asian boys at the school. Did you had a different upbringing? You went home and went to masjid and studied Quran, and the other boys would have been doing their own thing. Was that noticeable in any of the reactions at school? I mean, you're involved in sports, for example.
Yeah, so, you know, mum was amazing in the sense that she was the mother and the father, and she never let us feel that, you know, we were single parents, or she never, you know, she did the best that she could in terms of making sure that we had everything that, you know, that was the normal at the time in terms of Nike trainers, or, you know, the latest bags and so on and so forth. I wouldn't say spoiling us, but just making sure that we were the same as everybody else. So in the sense of playing rugby after school, or, you know, playing football and going to the tournaments and going to the karate tournaments and so on and so forth, she was, you know, a massive backer on that, and she'd make sure that that was priority. But again, we had the masjid, and we had the, you know, going and praying salah, and, you know, keeping fasting during Ramadan, and none of that was ever hindered by school or by the kind of peer group either.
Did you feel any at this stage any schism between your identity?
The identity, there's one moment that I remember that it was in the summer months, and I was ill at school. The form tutor at the time says, Adeem, you're not looking well, and, you know, you really should go home. So we used to go to school on the bus. So he says, just jump on the bus and go back home. So I went out of the school grounds, and I sat on the wall outside a row of terraced houses. So I'm sat there, I'm just feeling like death, really. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm gonna vomit or something. And I hear a little child stood at the window saying, Mummy, there's a Paki on our wall. I thought, what? There's Paki on your wall? I'm the Paki on the wall. And I thought to myself, you know, a 3-year-old child, a little child, obviously his mum has brought him up with the the talk or the recognition of what a Paki looks like. So obviously I must be the Paki that they're referring to. And it was a kind of a changing point, because after that time I had like an out-of-body experience, and I was looking down and I saw myself as being different. I didn't see myself as being the same, or white, or blonde hair, blue eyes. That's the point I actually realised. When somebody looks, when my friends are looking at me, they're looking at a Paki. So after that stage is when you're just more self-aware, I guess, and you're aware that.
Were you self-conscious?
No. I wouldn't say self-conscious. Just aware of you are a little bit different. And then when, for example, after that, when my friends are having barbecues, they're saying, Adeem, we're going to have a barbecue, but there's going to be alcohol, there's going to be drinks, and maybe you might not want to come around because there's going to be drinking. And they know I don't drink. And I was like, okay, that's because I'm and I don't do that. And it was just a case of feeling not left out, but feeling that you're different, and not in a bad way, because I think the love at home, and the kind of the acceptance at home, and the being comfortable at home, and being comfortable within yourself, within your own skin, was always there. So again, I can imagine it could knock other people, but at that time it was okay.
That question of how we think we are and how other people see us, and that kind of sometimes that separation, is interesting. That moment that you felt different. Let's discuss about being a Muslim. Was that an issue? Did the youngsters you hung out with at 14 and 15?
No.
Were you Muslim to then, or were you Asian? Did they know you were Muslim? Did that mean anything? Did that word have any weight?
I don't think it did, no, because look, we were riding bikes and we were conker picking, and we were fighting with the conkers and going out and exploring and finding this new tree and finding this new kind of railway line and jumping across there and doing all these silly things that youngsters do. I remember, friends, English, non-Muslim friends knocking on the door saying, Adeem, can you come out and, we're doing this today, or we're going down to the hill, we're going to climb over there, or we've seen this tree, we're going to go explore there. This is what children do. And Mum's like, no, you must go to the masjid and pray salah before you do anything. So I was, okay guys, come on, let's go to the mosque first. So, on the bike, going to the masjid, parking outside, look after my bike, go inside, pray salah, come back, oh thank you, on your bike, and off you go. And it was just, that's what, she has to be on a weekend, or he has to go on his holidays and go here, go there. And this is just what Adeem does. This is part of the dynamics. And as youngsters, they would accept it, absolutely no problem.
So do you accept the current media and to some extent political narrative of saying that Muslims are ghettoised, that we ghettoise ourselves, that there is no integration? Is that something you recognise, or has times changed?
No, I recognise that, definitely, but I guess it was the upbringing, and my mum was, she had a lot of friends who were non-Muslims. We had non-Muslims come into the house. Mum used to sew clothes for people who were Muslims, non-Muslims, Asians, whoever they might be. So it's never a case of, don't hang about with him, son, and don't go down there, and don't do this and don't do that. It was always a case of, not a problem, as long as it's halal, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, and as long as you're not destroying anything. Obviously don't hang around with the bad children who go around and steal and maybe go around and graffiti. You get a real good telling off for that, and maybe even sometimes a good slap as well. But it was just, but I understand where the ghetto culture comes from, because it's tribalism. We've got a design agency, and one of our clients, he sports Sheffield United, and I always tease him because I say, how's Sheffield Wednesday doing? And he's like, no, they're better, and they've done this, and it's only football, and it's only, I don't even know which one you are, because I get confused. Is it United? Is it Wednesday? I don't even know which football side it is. And it's like, no, Adeem, it's this, we're doing this, and they're doing this, and it's like this. And I just see that it's the human in us, rather than the Muslim in us, that's telling us to be tribal and to be, us and them. But Islam breaks those right down and says, you submit to only Allah. You be fair, you be clean, and you do good, and you do good to humanity, and not just people of the sect that you belong to, and not just people of the village or the country that you belong to, but the whole of humankind.
So how would you address British non-Muslims who would say, well, the very fact that you are Muslim and worship Allah already separates us from you? we're not part, we can't be part of that tribe because we're not Muslims. Isn't it a segregatory concept, do you think, in Britain?
No, I think we owe a lot to this country, to be honest with you. We owe a lot in terms of our security, our freedom to practice, our ability to have a voice and our ability to teach ourselves and our children Islam, not cultural Islam. You know, if we come from the Indian subcontinent, we learn about Pakistan. You know, until I went on Umrah 8 years ago, and this is not even when I was a child, you know, I thought, you know, in the back of your mind, you think Islam, Pakistan. But when you go on Umrah, you go the pilgrimage to the Holy Lands, you see the whole of the world coming together and praying, and that's unity that unites everybody. It takes away the country and the flags, and it just brings you down to brothers and sisters, and that's it, and that's so beautiful. So it's not about your identity as such. It's more about your faith, and you can be a Christian British, you can be a Muslim British, you can be a Jewish British. You know, it's just the land that we live in, and this is our land now. This is our home, and we should be comfortable here.
I just want to look a bit more at that tribalism aspect and that nationalism aspect. Can we really be united by Britishness, or isn't it a common spirituality and an aspiration for a better world that really unites people?
I think there's a lot of this the big talk that goes on in terms of the politicians and the hierarchy. Can, you know, we use fancy words and kind of be saying this, that, but you know, Islam and Muslims, it's all about getting the grassroots, what you're like with your neighbour, what you're like with the person who lives opposite the road, what you're like with your colleague at work, and you know different, you know, because at the end of the day we're all human beings. We bleed red, we have headaches, we lose family members, you know, we grieve the same, we hurt the same, we enjoy the same, we all have pleasures, we all want happiness. You know, the bottom line, humans are human. You know, what your faith is and what your idea of the hereafter is, you know, that's for the hereafter. But if the way you practice or your belief doesn't hurt anybody, doesn't harm anybody, then, you know, that's a good thing, that's a fantastic thing for society. As Muslims, you know, we believe that marriage is half of our faith, and that's a pillar. You know, even recently, and the politicians are pushing that now. Get married, be in a unity together, husband, wife, children. Why? Because it's so important to the community. It's so important in terms of the wider society. It's so important for our children, for the next generation, to have a stable upbringing with a mum and a dad and a family environment, that they can be solid, and they can be better people.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Talking Booth. I'm continuing my discussion today with my guest Adeem Younis of Penny Appeal. Adeem, welcome back. I want to go back to 9/11 because you were building credibility as a business person, working with people from all sections of our society. And then 9/11 happened. How did that affect you? What was the instant impact?
I remember I was in the office. I think everybody remembers where they were at 9/11. I was in the office, and I took a phone call from a very good client of ours, non-Muslim, and he says, "Adeem, your lot have done it again." I said, what do you mean your lot have done it again? He says, "Watch the news, your lot have really done it this time." And I thought to myself, you know, we had a really open relationship, and it was a case, it doesn't matter, and, you know, we have a laugh and a joke about religion and culture and so on and so forth, and really, you know, I wasn't offended by it whatsoever. But what that told me was that these events separate us. These events tend, you know, we get, you know, this is us and this is them, and we are now against them and they're against us, and so on and so forth, and that kind of closes the communities down. So it's a really bad thing. And even before, that was when the terrorism was happening, the atrocities were happening. It was just kind of like live, but it was already, Muslims have done this, Muslims have done that. But as a Muslim, I didn't recognise that. You know, that's not what I practice, that's not what I'm taught, that's not what I've learned at the masjid, that's not what I've learned from my mum, from my grandfather, from my family. That's not Islam, that's not Muslim. So I was very, very detached from that. That wasn't my Islam, you know, that was...
Is it something you recognise in the community around you now?
Absolutely not. No, there's there's nothing like that in the community whatsoever. You know, there's lots of problems in the community, in the sense that, you know, challenge to, you know, do good at school, challenged to, you know, get good healthcare, challenged to get good school places, challenged to, you know, career progress and do good at what you know, in your career and in your life, and that kind of thing, and improving yourself as Islam, learning about the taqwa, learning your Arabic, learning your Quran, your hadith. But that's really not what we do.
It's interesting to think about the billions and billions being spent on intelligence and prevent strategies and strategies that criminalize large sections of the Muslim community here. What if that money was spent on, for example, building up educational resources and youth groups for Muslims in this country? I mean, is the kind of focus shifting away from seeing Muslims as a part of the community in Britain and now a problem for the community in Britain?
I think those people who are weak or who are maybe on the fringe anyway, but who are having some conflicting, you know, with their identity, it's pushing those individuals away for sure, because they're having this crisis of identity. Who am I? What am I? Where am I from? What do I stand for? What is my future? Where am I going? And it's those people who really kind of that pushes them maybe into things that wouldn't normally be their kind of natural disposition. But I think other people that kind of, you know, this is our life. This is where we belong. We just kind of you just put your head down and you just get on. And it's a difficult time. It's a difficult patch. But what can you do? You know, we've got. Personally, we've got, you know, parents in this country, we've got grandparents in this country, we've got uncles, aunts, we've got children in this country as well. We want the same for our family that any other family wants for their family. So somebody in rural Africa, somebody in, you know, in Dubai, in New York, in Paris, in London. We, as humans, we want the same thing. We want stability, we want security, we want our loved ones to be safe, and we want to prosper ourselves. We want to have a healthy environment, and we want to become better human beings. That's just every human.
You're married. How many children do you have?
4 children.
MashaAllah. What ages?
Hajra is 6, Aisha is 5, Abdullah is 2, and baby Ruqiyya, who's only 6 weeks old.
Well, God bless your wife, especially for what she's doing now.
She's a soldier.
And she's a bit of a hero to you, isn't she?
No, absolutely. I mean, she's a career lady. She's doing absolutely amazing at her job. She's a GP by profession, and she's managing to do that. She's just completed her GP training at the moment, and, you know, balancing.
How is she doing that with 4 children, though?
Just because she's like a superwoman. She's just really good at what she does in terms of her profession. And she's unbelievable, you know, in terms of managing the children at home and home, balancing the, you know, family and work life is just amazing. And I don't know how she does it, because I take my work goes home with me, and my, you know, family life sometimes comes to the work, you know, my workplace, and I don't know how to have that divide, but she does it so well and eloquently, and just makes it all just work.
Again, there's this single image in the media of Muslim marriage and Muslim relationships and the way Muslim women are treated, and that image is forcibly put forward as negative, that women, you know, forced hijab, forced burqa, not allowed to work. Is this something that you recognise in the community here, in the community with people you mix with, husbands and wives, their relationship?
No, to be honest. Absolutely not. The community here is the community that I'm involved in. Are people who are forward-thinking, people who are open-minded, people who put as much into what they're doing in their work, in their family life, than anybody else, any other Muslim, any other non-Muslim, sorry, that I know of.
Let's just quantify that. People, you know, perhaps non-Muslims would say, yeah, but how big is that section of the community?
I think that's a majority. I think that's a majority, and I think the media blows it out of proportion. You know, maybe it's off subject, but in terms of, you know, when you hear about a dog attack, you hear, you hear it from time to time in the media. So and so's been mauled by a dog. So and so's been mauled by a dog. It happens all the time. It's quite common. But for one weekend, it's just flooded. It's blanket coverage that the dog attack has, you know, injured somebody as fatally, or, you know, taken somebody's leg off, or, you know, whatever it might be. Similar kind of thing, I believe, anyway, in terms of, you know, just wanting to focus on the burqa, wanting to focus on the niqab, wanting to focus on the oppressed female who's, you know, not allowed to do anything, not allowed to leave the house, and so on and so forth. And it's really exaggerated. It's not again, it's not the Islam that I know, that I live, or that any members of my family or friends or extended circles live in. Absolutely not.
And just to be clear, your daughters, will you encourage them to go to university? Is there a barrier on what they are able to do because of their faith?
Look, in my life, the powerhouses are the women. You know, my mum was a very, very strong lady. She is a strong lady. She had her own shop. She was self-employed. She was the first woman in the city to have her own market shop, and then later on a retail and a high street shop. My wife is a GP. She's independent. My sisters are professionals. They do their own thing, and they are the life and blood of their family.
So talking of marriage, in the year 2000 you set up what was to become a hugely successful marriage, not dating site, specifically for Muslims. How did you and why did you come away from your business career at that point to set up something that was really quite risky?
That was my business: design, web programming, database solutions, and I saw a massive opportunity. You know, that whilst at college, whilst at university, there was a camp of girls and a camp of boys in terms of, you know, massively eligible sisters who were ready for marriage, and they had all the kind of ticked all the boxes, and the same again, mashallah, amazing brothers who, you know, if I could, I'd say, you know, you can marry my sister, because they're just, you know, so amazing in terms of personalities, their backgrounds, the values that they had as individuals. But there was this invisible wall, and it was a real big, thick, high wall that they could not get together with, and they had the parental pressures as well of, you know, going and marrying the cousins and going and marrying so and marrying back from home, wherever home might be. And it was a case of, how do you get these two groups to be introduced to one another? And the solution was website. You know, there's other people that are doing it. There were other sites at the time that introduced this. And I thought, it's perfect. You know, you put a criteria on a profile. This is who I am, and this is who I'm searching for, and then, you know, you find the search results. And
I want to stop you there, just because I want to go back to this concept of, first of all, being in Britain, and to a certain amount, a greater or lesser degree, segregation amongst Muslim, young Muslim boys and girls, certainly in those of Asian descent. Can that work in British society? Is it's problematic because of marriage? Is it, you know, is it going to carry on? How is this going to work, and how does it work now?
I think segregation to a certain degree is quite respectful, you know, in terms of, you know, we still see it today in terms of women's groups and, you know, women's events and, you know, so on and so forth, men's events. It's quite natural again, because if you had a group of, you know, quite naturally, men would kind of fluctuate to each other, and women would do the same as well.
But I don't think non-Muslims feel that way. In fact, they don't.
But in terms of the faith dictates that as well, in terms of keeping it respectful, keeping, you know, the less free mixing in that sense, and not being distracted by one another, and not going into one another's private space, and so on and so forth. But when you're working, when you're studying, when you're at university, you know, it's your choice. You do it at free will. But when you're, say for example, if you're at an event which is an Islamic event, and that's what the organisers choose for you to do, then that's, you know, it's not forced in that way. But I guess some culture, some not Islamic but cultural groups take it one step too far. And when they stop women from being able to progress and fulfill their dreams and their desires in an Islamic and a halal way, that for me is a step too far. It's respectful to keep the groups apart, but when you stop the progress, and that then is un-Islamic.
So obviously marriages happened very fluidly back in the traditional societies and cultures, and also, you know, as we all were, all societies back 60, 70 years ago, you were limited really to who you were going to marry by where the next train stop was, and if there was no train coming to the village, you were going to marry in the village, maybe in the family, tribalism. That started to break down or to change somehow, didn't it, when Muslims came over to the UK?
Muslims or kind of cultures, when cultures came over, it's not Islamic, you know, that isn't Islamic to marry within your own or to marry your own, you know, in your own tribe. Islamically, prophetically, you know, marriage is with outside of your own tribes. But when the cultures start to come to the UK, you know, my parents got married and they were told who they were going to marry, and that was it, they accepted, and that was just the norm. That was what happened, and that's how it happened, and there was no, that was it, you know, they had no choice, they had no, is it done? It's not done any other way, this is the way that it's accepted, end of story. But now when we are, or should I say, when there is choice, when we can see the future, when we are educated, when we're wanting to practice Islam, pure Islam, when we're wanting to, you know, exercise our free will as Muslims, not as people of a certain culture and people of a certain tribe and people of a certain sect. Islam allows you to do that. And I guess it's those other cultural pressures that are hindering us. And I saw it a lot back in, before I set the website up as well. People were forced, maybe a wrong word in terms of, you know, arm twist, and physically forced, but emotionally forced to wed and to marry to the cousins and the, you know, bringing family members over to the UK. And I saw it as a disaster. It was a disaster from you know.
Why a disaster? Because, you know, going back to we're just it's a different universe living in the UK, being brought up in a UK academic society, the law of the land, the society, the cultures, you know, the culture here, you know, what your sports, your activities, your friends, your family. Let's go back to your site then, and so out of that, seeing that some of those disasters happening, and wanting good people to find a way of meeting in a halal environment, what resistance did you meet when you said, I'm setting up it's a marriage site? Did people say it's a dating site, haram?
Initially, at that stage in 2000, people didn't even know what the internet was, a lot of people, because, you know, sadly, Muslims, Asians, we're laggards. You know, we follow everybody else. It's like, oh, that's happening, right, let's do that. Oh, that's happening, let's do that. So that the community didn't even know that, what the internet was, www, what is that, you know. But following from that, when people start to realise that this is a place where you can have this or you can have this, the internet had a bad reputation, the internet had a bad name. Even though people didn't use the internet, it was a case of, oh, whisper, you know, this is happening on there, this is happening on there. Personally, I didn't see any of that, but I could feel that would be a point of resistance for usage on the website. But I think it's a massive, massive problem. The only major problem for Muslims in a non-Muslim country is to find a suitable marriage partner. And how do you go around doing that? You know, if you're a professional, I remember a phone call. A brother called up and he says, I've got a question. No problem, brother. Can you hurry up? Can you know, quickly. No problem. Just answer the question. Just out of interest, brother, why are you asking, you know, what's the rush? He says, I'm a surgeon and I'm between theatre. So I've just finished an operation on the website, finding somebody, messaging, and then I'm going to go back into theatre again. So, you know, this is the, you know, when we are not in a Muslim environment, when our circles are non-Muslims, when our friends, when our family don't have that network, don't have the opportunity to meet like-minded people, what do you do? Because, you know, you're wanting to find somebody for your home, you're wanting to find somebody for your personal space, you're wanting to find a Muslim who's like-minded, who can be a homemaker, whether you're a male looking for a female or female looking for a male, you're looking for a lifetime partner who can share those dreams and aspirations. And the site makes it so easy, and my favourite success stories are where the families are involved, they're involved in the search process, they're involved in the introduction process, and they make it so easy. You know, we met on a Monday and we did nikah on a Friday. Alhamdulillah, we are married now, we'll get on with life. You know, make it easy for yourself, make it easy for your loved one, make it easy and become one together. And do the walima, let the world know that you're husband and wife, but keep that simple as well.
So whilst the young men in our community have this, you know, a long, difficult stage of trying to find a wife, and then you have the young women who study like all of our peers, and then we wake up and we're 30, which actually in Arabic is 110. And you know, Islamically, it's really these young men who study the same as the sisters. Yeah. They'll get a young wife who's 19. what are the sisters supposed to do?
And
What's your advice?
In Asian years, it's 150.
Yeah.
The advice really is go back to Islam. What does Islam teach us? Islam teaches that we can marry on looks, we can marry on education, we can marry on status, we can marry on wealth. But the advice Islamically is to marry on piety. And why marry on piety? Because at the end of the day, that's the real value that individual has. That's the weight of the personality of that person. That's the type of individual that will stay strong by you in this world. Be good to you, be good to your family, be good to your neighbours and your environment, and then be your key to Jannah in the hereafter as well. So you know the baggage, this whole checklist that we have. It's important to have somebody who's compatible, and the site is set up to get you in touch with people who are compatible. But then don't make it a list which is realistic.
Do you know what? I'm distracted because I'm just thinking of all the sisters I know who have said to me, you know what, yeah, the man who's pious at the masjid can be an absolute horror in the home. So marry a man with money, because at least you know you're going to be in a nice home. I mean, there's a lot of cynicism now about, unfortunately, a number of practicing brothers who present one thing in the street and then another thing to their families.
It goes both ways. We're in the business of marriage, and we hear stories on both sides. And it's not about what the individual is like on the streets or what they're like in the masjid or what they're like at the home. Again, Islam teaches us that we have to have references. We have to have people who know the individual and people who work with the individual and people who go to the masjid, but people who are family friends and people who are lifelong friends. Have a look at check the references out, check these people out. See what they're like, see what the type of friends that they have, to see what type of society they live in, see what they do and how they go about their daily life, and how they treat their parents, how they treat their brothers and sisters, and then after that you can do so much and leave it in the hands of Allah.
Let me just ask you something. Is there racism on your site? Because I know that Afro-Caribbean reverts have a really hard time finding community members to marry, and members of the Asian community to a large, certainly their parents will say, no, we're not having that person in our family. It's still not common.
It's no more so than in the English. If you're English and you're white, you're blue eye, blonde hair, and you bring somebody home, who is this and what is this? I'm talking in the traditional senses.
Yeah,
maybe not today. But like we said, with Muslims, sadly, we're laggards.
Yeah.
We're lagging behind. We'll get there. It's just this culture. Hazrat Bilal was the first person to give the call to prayer. That's Islam. That's the value.
Let's just
of
be a
person.
reminder that we were actually Islamic. broke down tribal borders. We were about marrying pious people from whichever community around the world. We broke that.
And that's Islam, and that's what Islam teaches. When we leave Islam and we go to culture and we go to what looks beautiful or what is today's fashion is size 10 or might be this fashion, that fashion, then that's when we go off the rail, and that's when it's going to be a disaster for us and our future generations as well.
Let's talk about penny appeal, because you, on top of all of the other work that you do, this charity has been founded now in 30 different countries. How did that come about?
Alhamdulillah, I mean, the charity came about because of my roots being in Pakistan and going back to Pakistan quite regularly as a child, and even more so since I set up the business, and looking at the hardship really of people who are my first cousins, my dad's brother, seeing the environment that he lives in, seeing the village and the poverty that they are in, and seeing the lack of education opportunities that they have there. And I'm thinking, that could have easily been me. If my father didn't come here, if he didn't marry, and I'm brought into the UK, or he came into the UK, and I was born in the UK, that would have easily been me over there. It's not about any faith-based or any kind of group of individuals, or it's a humanitarian charity to benefit anyone anywhere that's in need, and it literally is pennies per day. So we're appealing for pennies that will make a big difference. So it's just that, the strapline came quite naturally. It's small change, big difference.
Adeem, finally, what are your future aspirations personally? What do you hope to achieve, and also how do you hope to see the Muslim community prosper in this country?
It's a big question, and I guess I'm a son, I'm a husband, and I'm a father. And you know, you got to stay grounded, you got to stay focused, and you just got to be the best you can be, not just to those, but I'm also an employer, and you know, we've got a huge and growing team here as well. You know, just be the best you can be, and be an example. Be a small fraction of what the great and the good Muslims did in their societies and in those days, and show people by example of what a Muslim should be and how a Muslim should live.
Adeem Younis, thank you very much for being my guest today on Talking Booth. And that's all we have time for in this edition. If you have a suggestion of somebody in your community who is making a difference far and wide, why not send their name to us at www.britishmuslim.tv/talking booth. And I'll see you next time. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.